Hello, and welcome to the Wombs of the World podcast, where we explore how culture is dynamic and birth is universal. This is a space for remembering, for reimagining, and for reclaiming birth as a sacred thread that connects us all. On today's show, we are joined by the radiant Theoni, a conscious birth doula, coach, educator, body worker, and ceremonialist based in South Africa. With over 30 years of experience attending births and supporting women, Theoni has dedicated her life to creating spaces where women can reconnect with themselves through pregnancy, postpartum, and the wider thresholds of womanhood. Her work is weaving science and soul, blending NLP, kahuna bodywork, cranial sacral therapy, ancient ritual, creativity, and ceremony. She is a fierce advocate for reclaiming birth as a rite of passage, for restoring postpartum care as sacred, and for honoring all of life's transitions with intention and community. I'm so grateful to have you on here today. I feel like we should share how we met.
I think that's a good plan. So I think I found you, I was reflecting on it this morning. I think I found you maybe 3 years ago on Instagram. I came across the Wombs of the World Instagram page and I was just like, oh, what? There's people that do such things as this. I want to do this. And I remember reaching out to you saying, I'm coming from far away. I don't know how this is going to work. And sure, I'm so grateful that I met you and that it took me a little while, but I got to Ecuador last year with you, and just the woman that we were with, the way you put everything together is just beautiful. It's beyond, I don't even have the words of how it's, I think, one of probably my top 5 memorable things in my life that I hold. I know I'm going to start. Let me not start crying right at the beginning. But yes, I just feel like it's had such an impact on my life.
Well, thank you. I mean, wow, thank you. That obviously makes my cup want to overflow. I'm like, I'm just going to cut this and put it as a testimonial on the website. But for me as well, I remember when you first reached out and I saw you and I looked you up and I was like, whoa, this woman is phenomenal. And I felt this, I want to say imposter syndrome with you. It's like, she wants to come and I need to make sure that it's, worthy of you because of your life's work and everything that you've put into it. And then to hear you say that really warms my spirits. And also you were, as you know, such a delight to have with us. And that's, when I talk about Wombs of the World trips, I say that it's the magic comes from the participants. We curate something and obviously the midwives are amazing and being on the land is amazing, but really it's the people that come together that bring all of those special pieces into play. And you were absolutely this shining star for me throughout our trip, and just so grateful even grateful that your luggage didn't show up. So we had more one-on-one time going to and from the airport, getting those extra moments with you was really special. So you joined us all the way from South Africa.
Yes.
Would love to hear a little bit about your life's work, what you're up to now, and then would love to dive into what birth and birth work looks like in South Africa so that we can paint a global picture for our listeners. But first, tell us a little bit about you.
So, the first birth I was ever at was 30 years ago, so that's a long time. There was no such thing as doula trainings in South Africa. And a couple of years after I was at my first birth, second birth with family and friends, someone said, oh, maybe you want to do this course. And it said doula course. And I was like, well, what's a doula? And I remember reading the pamphlet going, oh, but that's what I'm doing already. And I nagged this woman for a year to get the course together. And then eventually we did the course. So I was on the first ever doula training. And I feel like as I've got older, I've realized that I really do pioneer. That is one of my things, is I pioneer new things. So I pioneered the doula movement or start in South Africa. I also pioneered the hypnobirthing. So I brought someone from America to teach us the hypnobirthing, Marie Mongan method, which I taught for about 17 years, then created my own with the 24 years of, again, pregnancy yoga. And pregnancy yoga as well was a new thing in South Africa. There was no one teaching pregnancy yoga 25 years ago when I started. Whereas now I've stopped teaching it because there's enough people doing it. I don't have to do it anymore. So that brings me to where I am now after attending and participating in the Ecuador trip, and even before that, I started feeling like there's so much lacking in postpartum. There's so much focus on pregnancy and birth, and then suddenly women have got this baby and they're like, okay, so now what do I do? And we need to prepare women for postpartum. Like we need. So I've started implementing that, and of course it's quite new for me. I mean, it's not new, but it's doula is like easy. Like I know it. I've done it for decades. Whereas the postpartum doula, I'm still trying to find my way of what do I actually want to be doing? How do I actually want to be serving people? And every couple is different, how they want to be supported. So that's where I find myself now, is pioneering postpartum. How do we support women postpartum in where we find ourselves? So, and then obviously because I work one-on-one with clients as well, and body work and all of that. But from a birth point of view, you were saying you want to know about South Africa, how it fits in globally.
I find it, just even in listening to you now, it sounds like you pioneered and brought so much from the outside world to South Africa, because I guess that's like what was trending in the birth space as you were getting into it. But what does birth and birth culture and birth practices in South Africa look like? Are doulas accepted in hospitals? Like, just paint the scene.
So it's quite radically different. So we've got public health, which is people who have got lower income brackets, which is basically public health. So people would just arrive and they birth if there's a bed. They're probably not allowed a support person. And there's maybe 30 women birthing in one huge room with basically a curtain dividing them. That's it. So I think similar to like your Tanzania trips, the pictures that I've seen. So very similar like that. The doula trainings that are available in South Africa now, part of getting your hours is to do service in the public sector, which I think is a great experience for people to be aware of. So there's the public, then there's private. So private is you can have a gynecologist, like your OB, gynae OB, like I think in America. And the gynae takes you through the whole pregnancy and is there for labor and birth, etc. Our cesarean section rate in South Africa is the second highest in the world. It's sitting at 85%.
Woof.
I know, right?
Oof, yeah.
And I've been
That feels
sitting
like
on
a
my
slap in the
soapbox.
face.
Yeah. And I've been standing on my little soapbox for 30 years going, guys, there's another way, like, look at why. And I think the main reason why is the legal system in South Africa. Gynaes are paying 1.2 or 1.4 million rand a year. I don't know what that is in dollars, times it by 19 or something like that. That's what they pay a year in medical insurance, in liability. So,
wow.
and the reason why they pay that is that if you can prove there's something wrong with your child, up until the child is 18 years old, you can still sue the gynae if you had a physiological natural birth. If you had a Caesar, you cannot sue them because they did everything life-saving.
Whoa.
I know, so it's really screwed.
So to protect themselves long term, I mean, also, like, what? That makes wow. I mean, this is why I'm asking you, because, our general tagline, culture is dynamic, but birth is universal. Whoa, that culture of liability. I mean, it's similar I don't know about the suing process in Tanzania, but I also know that they act in a way probably all over the world, but for personal liability, like out of fear of personal liability. It's safer on them for a C-section.
And I think that's more and more what's happening in the world is that, women are going to their gynae or their midwife at 36 weeks, and then the midwife's starting to tell them all the things that could possibly go wrong, all the things that could, and that is not what birth is. Like universally, that's not, but they are protecting themselves. So again, it's this liability, and I think that's just where we are with capitalism and where we find ourselves in the world. And I think it really sucks.
So you say that's not what birth is. Theoni, can you tell me, and from your heart, what is birth?
I mean, for me, birth is a heart-opening human ritual. That's what birth is. And I think for women to be held in that space, that she is able to be autonomous with her experience of what it is that she wants, who she wants there, who she doesn't want there, and to do it in her own power and her own beauty and her own grace and her own strength, because she does it on her own. We're just there supporting. We're just there holding that space. And I think a lot of women in this world that we find ourselves are not given this opportunity. More and more just aren't given the space to do that because, you've now passed your due date, or all sorts of things. And I think that the two most important questions I always tell my clients to ask their caregivers, the most important thing is, how comfortable are you going over my due date? I don't use the word allow. I think allow is bullshit, because I don't know if I'm allowed to say bullshit, but I did.
Go for it.
Is that no one allows you to do anything with your body and your baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how comfortable do you feel, because I'm paying you a shitload of money to do what I want. So how comfortable are you? Because I want to know, if you're not comfortable, I will find someone else. And that is the kind of place I want my clients to come from. So that she can go, okay, well, you want me to go to 40 weeks. I mean, we know, living in France now, the French estimated due date is 41 weeks. And their babies come more or less on time. Why doesn't the whole world do 41 weeks? And then babies would come more or less on time. We wouldn't have high inductions and high cesarean section rates. Why don't we just change that? That would change so much. Just when is the estimated due date? So that's the first question I always try and tell my clients, because if you go into labor spontaneously, without interference, without anyone fiddling with you, you have a 95% chance of having a physiological birth. That is a big lotto card. 95% chance. So I think that's where it begins. If we can start there, then that changes everything. The second thing is, I always ask them to ask is, at what point do you do an episiotomy? Because it still happens.
Yeah,
and you
so
don't
are
want to ask them,
episiotomies common in South Africa?
with gynecologists, not with independent midwives. Independent midwives, I've seen two episiotomies ever in 30 years with an independent midwife, and literally would do like a centimeter, because they were dancers and had very tight pelvic floors, and just baby was not coming. So literally 1 centimeter. Whereas in the hospitals, gynaes will do episiotomies, like, big episiotomies, and not even ask permission.
Oof.
Not even,
Yep.
yeah. And that's why for many years now I've chosen to not support women in hospitals. I've been traumatized too much, and my clients and the babies and the partners, that I really empower my clients to choose differently. To look at, what do midwives offer compared to gynaes, and where do you feel like you're going to get the best care?
So you talked about the public hospitals and the private hospitals. Where do the independent midwives fit into the birth picture?
So the independent midwives, some of them do home births.
Okay.
Some of them then work at a birthing center, and a few of them have a permission to go to 1 or 2 hospitals. And that's it.
Culturally, societally, how are independent midwives seen?
So it's interesting, because some women don't even realize, like, oh, there's midwives? I didn't know there was midwives. And I think if people aren't looking for it, they're not going to find it. But if people are looking for, like, I want something different, I often find people find me and they go, so someone said, I want a natural birth, and I'm going to speak to you because you'll know how. And I'll go, okay, great. Let's talk. And then I'll go, well, these are your options. They're like, oh, well, they didn't know that was their options. They didn't know that was an option, a midwife. They had no idea. And I think it's because there's not, I think in Johannesburg, if I think of all the midwives that practice here, maybe, I think at the most 30, maybe 20 or 30 midwives. That's it. That's all there is, independent midwives.
And is there a path to midwifery education in South Africa? Like,
Yes.
can you choose the path to becoming a midwife?
Yes. So there used to be direct entry midwifery. So 30 years ago, when I was 30, maybe 25 years ago, when I was doing more doula work, I thought maybe I should become a midwife. And unfortunately, the direct entry is no longer available. So you have to do 4 years of nursing and then you specialize into midwifery. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, that just didn't make sense. I must do 4 years of nursing, look after sick people so that I can look after women in a natural process. That's a
Mm-hmm.
normal, natural, physiological experience. Like, that makes no sense. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's for hospitals that the midwives in the birthing, unit or section of the hospital, that if they're not busy, the nurses can send them somewhere else to work instead of
Mm-hmm.
rest, because birth is hard work. So again, it's about, how can we make the most of the people we employ?
Yeah. Very, very interesting. I'm finding that the path to midwifery varies so drastically around the world, and other places that also have incredibly high C-section rates have almost impossible paths to midwifery. Like when I was in India in 2023 learning about birth practices there, discovered that there's literally no path to midwifery, that's not an educational career. And so their
No,
C-section rates are also in the, like, the one of the hospitals I was visiting, they're at 90% C-section rates. And it's because and their reasoning is because it's doctors are taking care of so many patients that they have to schedule it. Like, they can't just wait for spontaneous birth. And then
crazy.
just the disservice. And so I'm curious from your perspective, and like knowing what you know about the world and very much your ceremonial approach to birth, and this is going to be a bit of a loaded question, but what are we losing as a collective when women are being forced essentially to have C-sections?
I think women are missing out on a lot. So are their partners. So are their babies. I mean, on so many levels. From a health point of view, babies not getting the bacteria as they come through the vaginal canal. Um, Partners not seeing women in their power. I've got
Mm-hmm.
couples who come and speak. I taught my conscious birth course this weekend, and I had 5 beautiful, diverse couples, and they were quite a hoot. I had to keep them in line because they kept on like going off. I was like, okay, guys, come, let's go back. We've got things to cover. And I had a client of mine who birthed in March, and she came to speak, and she brought her baby with. And for the 30 minutes that she spoke, this baby was just with her mom and looking at everybody and so calm, like no dummy in the mouth, no like wanting the breast, no. She was just like very happy. And she had to really work at having a great physiological birth because she's smaller physically, smaller physically wise. So, of course, that's always like, "Oh, you're going to have a cesarean section, blah, blah, blah." So she's the smallest person in her family, and she's the only one who's had a physiological birth with the biggest baby.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. So she herself was an IVF baby, and she was a twin.
Okay.
So her sister has had her own child and had a cesarean, and when her sister was wheeled out from the Caesar, she said to her, "Oh, how are you feeling?" Because she was just so overjoyed. And her sister said, "I feel empty."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she realized that is not the experience I want to have. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
have that experience. And I think that really brings home what you're asking, is that how are women left? What impact is this having? Is that we are taking away women's power.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are, and I mean, wombs of the world, that's the whole thing. The womb is the most important thing in a woman's body,
Mm-hmm.
besides our heart. They're probably, the heart and the womb, most important. And when we don't allow women to use their power and their womb, they miss out. They miss out on how powerful they are, how amazing they are. I speak to dads and they go, since she gave birth physiologically, I have a newfound respect for this woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when people are robbed of that, because I think it is taken away from women, is that it changes the dynamics of the relationship. And then relationships break down
Mm-hmm.
because women feel
Absolutely.
like, I didn't do it right. My body, I did, all of that doubt, all of that nonsense that was taken
Mm-hmm.
away.
Mm-hmm.
And then men just also feel like, well, then they I didn't protect her. I didn't stand up for her. I could have. So all of this self-doubt creeps in, and we have
Mm-hmm.
disempowered people. And of course, in the
Mm-hmm.
bigger scheme of things, if we have lots of disempowered people, we can control them. And that's not what we want. That's not what we want. We want
Yeah.
empowered people to be able to stand in their sovereignty and stand in their autonomy to go, no, I'm birthing like this, and this is what I'm looking for. And if you can't give it to me, I will find someone who does, because there's always
Mm-hmm.
someone who will.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So I think we're losing out on a lot.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I feel like there's also a difference mentally between the planned C-section and the unplanned C-section,
Yes.
and how that impacts us, because when it's a planned C-section, for whatever the reason may be, and sometimes I feel like a planned induction almost equates to planned C-section, as you've seen and as the numbers suggest, um, that like we're putting a plan on something that has no timeline. We're trying to control something that is natural and wild and primal and unifying and global and ancient and all of the things. And then when it's when it's an emergency situation, the most of the women that I talk to afterwards are just so deeply traumatized, and the experience has not been normalized for them in the slightest. And it wasn't normalized for their partner, and their partner thought, like their husband or their wife or whatever, thought that they might die. There's just like so much fear there. And then afterwards they're handed a baby and sent home responsible for this baby after major abdominal surgery and after all this trauma, and they have to get themselves in check. And so my next question for you is, what words of wisdom, how do you counsel your clients or people because obviously as birth workers, people unload their birth stories on us, whether they're our clients or not. But what kind of words of wisdom, what kind of counsel do you offer people who have either had unplanned or planned C-sections and that are recovering from that lack of sovereignty?
It's so important to put it into perspective for them
Mm-hmm.
without making them feel like it was their fault or they did something, because
Absolutely.
9.5 times out of 10, it's actually had nothing to do with them. It actually had to do with the system. So just last week I was with a client who really wanted a physiological birth, and I took her on quite late in her pregnancy, but she's an absolutely delightful woman, and her husband. And what happened was the placenta started to calcify.
Mm.
And now they're like, well, we can't let this go much longer. So I said, look here, please go and get a second opinion. Because if you've got a second opinion, then you're making the right decision. So again, empowering yourself to like, is this really what's happening, or am I just being told? So because she had the second opinion, and the second opinion was, actually, it's quite right, the placenta is calcifying, like you cannot wait much longer. So it's again, okay, well, now we've got choice. Now we've got options.
Mm-hmm.
And so before she was even going to see the midwife, I said, go for some acupuncture, because acupuncture, what it's going to do is it's going to line up all those meridians and get your body ready so that if we do the induction, the body is more susceptible to it and more ready
Yep.
for it.
Yep.
So of course and then she came and we did some craniosacral therapy as well, and that got her into labor. So the cranio and the acupuncture and the essential oils, all of that helped her to just kind of give her body a little jump start,
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
which was wonderful. But of course, because it wasn't going quick enough for the liking of the timeline that women are given, because just like you get doctors and doctors, you also get midwives and midwives. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to, really interview the people that you are employing, because you are employing them. And yeah, so then it was like, okay, well, you still need to do an induction because they're not, enough, or it's been so much time, etc. And I just feel like she wasn't given enough time. And as a doula, I've learned that, and especially in our system, I don't know if it's like that for you in Tanzania or in America, in that there's only so much you can say as a doula. Like you can't go, oh, sorry, excuse me, I think you should give her more time because blah, 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 blah. Because there are 2 hospitals that I'm not allowed to work at anymore in South Africa because I've been a bit vocal, which, it suits me fine because I don't want to support women who go there. So it's frustrating because I feel like had she been given more time, the chances are she may have had a physiological birth. And yeah, so we ended up with a Caesar, and it was really not handled nicely. She hasn't even seen the midwife since the birth. which I just think is horrifying. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
someone who you got to know during your pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been supporting her. I've seen her 3 times already since the birth. I'm going to see her later today again. But again, those feelings of like, is that normal? Is that how you are treated during a Caesar? Like, I was totally ignored. I felt like I was just lying there because they didn't
Mm-hmm.
let the husband and I in until she'd had the spinal
Oh,
and she was
goodness.
ready. I know. So it's a really, and I just had to explain to her, that's the system. And I had prepared her for the Caesar. So even if women are having a Caesar they didn't plan for, if I am their doula, I always take them through. Like, I say to them, so this is next. This is what's going to happen next. This is what's going to happen next. So at least they are starting to mentally prepare somewhat. And then
Mm-hmm.
afterwards, when you do counsel, you're going, okay, so remember, this is what happened. That's what
Mm-hmm.
happened. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, I know that's not ideal, but yes, remember, you got to do this and you got to choose this. And so, yeah, it's a process. And as you know, every single birth is unique. I've never been to 2 births that are even similar. Every
Mm-hmm.
birth unfolds the way it needs to because we're all unique.
Mm-hmm. I, I
Yeah.
I try to counsel my clients. Well, obviously, when teaching prenatal education, we always talk about C-sections because the likelihood of a C-section is in the U.S. it's like 1 in 3, which is better than almost 3 of 3. Um, and and something that I always want to talk about is what I think we've witnessed is that sometimes the recovery of a C-section is the emotional, mental, spiritual recovery takes much longer than the physical recovery. And so I try to paint the picture ahead of time of like, it is the bravest, most sacrificial thing you can do to have a C-section. It shows such power. It shows such courage. It shows such motherhood. And just because as you were just saying, like, so often women are like, my body failed me. Like, that's part of the narrative of a C-section.
Yeah.
Like, my body failed me. I did something wrong. And so like, no, no, no. It's always like, it takes 2 to tango. Sometimes when there's too much medication involved, things like that, like babies, little tiny, beautiful, perfect bodies don't tolerate it. And so it's like in those moments that we have to save that baby's life and you are making the greatest sacrifice. And so it's like, I want to praise them and honor them and celebrate their power and their vulnerability for doing that, while also holding the duality of like, and we can mourn that wasn't the birth you wanted. And like,
Yes,
welcome to the complexity of motherhood, where things are
absolutely.
never going to be black and white anymore. And we're going to have to hold all of that complexity and everything. And it's going to be the same thing down the road when they're exhausted and frustrated and that baby won't stop crying. And you're like, but at the same time, you love that baby more than anything in the world. And it's like, there's going to just constantly be those layers of complexity and duality. And so I feel like the C-section, for when I'm talking to my clients, at least, it's like that's the first, like the greatest metaphor I give them. And I mean, it's the same thing for a vaginal birth too. It's like, oh my goodness, like, I mean, it's like when they have a crazy contraction and I'm like, yay! And I'm like celebrating their discomfort and they're just looking at me and I'm like, sorry, but also good job. You're doing great, and so there's just so much. I mean, that's the beauty. I think that's, as you were saying, it's like the greatest rite of passage. It's the greatest initiation.
And it
This.
is about sacrifice, but it's also, I think, the biggest act of surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's saying yes to, yes, you can cut my body open, cut open 7 layers to take my child out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that is like
Whew!
a next level to
I mean,
surrender.
yep. And the fact that it's 7 layers and there's so many cultures that talk about 7 generations, like 7 generations back, 7 generations forward in healing, there's such symbolism there.
Mm,
Mm.
absolutely. Mm.
um, okay. I feel like obviously you and I could talk about C-sections and supporting clients in that for days, but shifting gears to the work that you're doing now and the work of conscious birth. I would love for you just to talk to us a little bit about essentially like share some of your wisdom. What is conscious birth and how should people get in the headspace for birth?
So conscious birth, I feel, is again knowing what your choices are, being
Mm-hmm.
aware of what are my options, what is it that I want. So spending that time on what is it that I want, where is my partner in this, and making time for the hard questions. because I feel like people don't make enough time for the hard questions of, what happens if something happens in birth that we don't like, whether it's a C-section or if we lose that baby. I mean,
Totally.
you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. And, you say, it's the mother and the baby. I feel like there is the creator, whatever you believe that is, mother, father, creator, God, whatever words you choose to use, and the people listening. And then there's the mother and there's the baby. So you always need three, just like you need an egg and a sperm and you need a uterus to make a baby. So there's always the power of three in creation. And so when I'm speaking to women, it is your baby in birth, and it is you and your body and what you're able to do, and it is the creator. So those three things are always at play. So it's about coming to, in my body as a pregnant woman, what can I do? So I can find out the information, I can make choices, I can make conscious choices and decisions about how autonomous I want to be, how do I want my partner to be involved, where do I want to birth, all of that. And then I can also choose am I going to be a wide open vessel for this child to come through, or I'm going to be a tight, constricted, controlling vessel. So again, it's about choosing and having all these tools at your disposal that you've practiced in your pregnancy so that in birth it comes more easily. So to be able to know which positions support your body, to know how to breathe, to know what are the words I need to tell myself when I cannot cope, when I think I can't do this anymore. What is going to get you through that when you hit that wall, the crisis of confidence? Because we're all, at some point, you're going to hit the wall. So what does your partner need to say to you? How do you need to be comforted? So if we know all of that beforehand and we're conscious of all those things, navigating it is so much easier.
Absolutely.
I feel.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about how many people should show up all over the world because we have been, I want to say, deprived of this narrative. Like what you were saying earlier about how because birth is mostly a hospital event now, it's lumped into the sicknesses. And birth is not remotely a sickness. There's so much agency that's involved, but we've been deprived of it because we're no longer remotely birthing in community. We're birthing in such isolation that we don't, I mean, I remember the story that I heard that inspired me to become a doula. And it was because someone was talking about their home birth experience and had a midwife and a doula and friends, and there was a drum circle. And I was just like, whoa, birth is not a hospital. Like birth can be something beyond a hospital event. And now, similar to you, it's like my biggest intention for my clients is to make informed decisions, like know what your options are and go from there. And sometimes the biggest thing that they need to learn is how to breathe, how to surrender, how to melt when you're, and it's so counterintuitive when you're like experiencing such physical pain, to like lean into that and to breathe into that and try to relax your muscles instead of fight it, because that's like the body's most natural thing to do, is to tense. So you have a wealth of experience from like the prenatal yoga and hypnobirthing. If you were to impart to our listeners, whether they're doulas or potentially pregnant people listening, what is like one of your biggest tools for that surrender, whether it's a word of affirmation or a breathing technique or both?
It's to find comfort in the uncomfortable.
That's also like
Just
my travel metaphor. So I love that.
Yeah, just like when you're pregnant, like you can't sleep like this and you've gone to sleep like that, and you've got to find a comfortable way because it's going to be uncomfortable. So how can we be comfortable in that? And just like when you're nursing and your nipples are sore and getting used to breastfeeding, or when you've got a teething baby or a colic baby or whatever, it's how do we lean into, how do we let go, how do we trust? For me, trust and surrender are hand in hand when I teach my courses and when I work with pregnant women. And I say to them at the beginning of the course, if you just can get the concept of surrender and trust, you've done well. Like you'll get through it.
And that's essentially, from where I'm sitting, that's where you lean on that third source. That's where you lean on that third source, and whether that source, however you want to name that source. And for some of my clients, that source is, I'm like, connect with all the other birthing women around the world. Like
Yes.
tap into the collective energy, and when you don't have that within you, know that that's there. Or even like take mine, like you don't have that energy anymore, like take mine, take my breath. Don't worry about your breath, take my breath. And like that just sometimes like gets them out of their headspace and back into
Yes.
their bodies. Or the
Yes.
affirmation of like, get out of your head and into your body. You're not birthing with your head is just getting on your way right now. Like come back to
Yes.
breath, come back to your
Yeah.
body, talk to your baby. And the thing is, it's like these are, oh, and this is what excites me so much about doula work and why I think doulas can like totally change the world in the birthing scene. It's because little things like that, little statements like that, little tools like that make the biggest difference in the birth scene. Like during that person's birth, most doctors and most labor and delivery nurses and most midwives don't have like the biggest hearts, and they want the best for their clients, but they don't have the time to be there in those moments and to offer that kind of counsel because they're busy doing a million other things. And like that's where the doula can add so much to the space and be the bridge between the medical and between the ceremonial.
So two other things which I love clients to really know. The one is because we know a surge or contraction, expansion, rush, whatever you want to call it, lasts about a minute.
Mhm.
So if a mother can practice her long, deep breathing and time a minute and see how many breaths do I take in 1 minute. So if she takes 8 breaths or 6 breaths or however many breaths she takes, she knows that when I'm doing my deep breathing, that is how many breaths I take. So that she's not having to rely on anyone else, especially on the car trip to the birthing center or to the hospital when dad's focused on the road. And she knows, okay, I'm on my 3rd breath or my 4th breath. It means I'm halfway. Actually, I'm almost there. So she's got that within her to know I've got control to know where I am with this surge. And that I feel is very empowering for women to know. And the other thing is that when women do get that crisis of confidence, or when they feel like I'm exhausted, meanwhile it's just the endorphins working really well and the oxytocin working really well, and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore, is to just start saying yes. Because when you
Ooh.
start saying yes, it opens up. And I say yes to the breathing, and yes to your body, and yes to the process, and yes to your baby, and and we just say yes for 3 surges, nonstop yes. That shifts a labor. I've done it many times where that will just completely shift a labor.
Well, this makes me think so much of yoga and the mentality in yoga. Like one of the things that my teachers would always say to me that has literally changed my life is you can do anything for one more breath. Like
Yes.
just literally take it one breath at a time. And in yoga, it's like you're in a challenging position and you're feeling it everywhere. Like just focus on holding it for one more breath. Hold it for one more breath and focus on breath. And so it's the same thing. It's like if you're just going to break it down to breaths at a time,
Yes.
break it down to breaths at a time. And then the other, I love the yes. I absolutely love that. And that's another, I want to say, like yogic thing of our brains are so easily manipulated. Like our thoughts and our attitude. And even so in yoga, they're like smile, hold the pose and smile through your discomfort, because it literally will trick your brain into embracing it and then helping your muscles soften into it. Because that's,
Yeah.
that's the dance of yoga as well, is like the strength and the softening at the same time. And so I love that your yogic background has been so influential in your approach to this. And I feel like you and I are cut from the same cloth and living
Yes.
around different parts of the world, but our hearts are so similar. I love it.
Me too.
Well, that's such incredible wisdom. So I love that like your first and foremost is about advocacy and like knowing who your provider is and knowing what your provider stands for. And then second step is like advocating for yourself and like knowing your body and making informed decisions of what you want. And then that third part is surrender. And I feel like that is also the triad of the mother, baby, and spirit. And so that's really beautiful. You're brilliant. So now you were speaking earlier about how you're very much shifting your efforts to postpartum and shifting your intentions postpartum. Can you describe a little bit about what your postpartum services and practice looks like?
Yeah, I'd love to just share with you firstly that I don't know if it's the same where you stay, but in South Africa, if you are with an obstetrician or a gynecologist, if you have a physiological birth, you would go home on day 2 or 3. If you have a Caesar, day 3 or 4 after the birth, and then you're on your own. And then you see them at 6 weeks. That's it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which is just madness. It's madness. And so
Yep.
with
That's
midwives, some of the
uh-huh.
midwives will do a few home visits. Some of them expect you to get in the car with your baby and your, either tear or Caesar scar and drive to them. I just think that's not okay. I think women should be able to be seen. And I think that's where the traditional ceremonial way comes from, is that women should be feeling safe and resting in her own home. And
Mm-hmm.
people should come to her where she is. And then also her nervous system is more relaxed. She's more at ease. That means her baby's nervous system is more relaxed and more at ease.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why I love to see clients in their own homes, because they get to be more at ease, and I get to meet them where they are, not,
Mm-hmm.
all frazzled. And so my postpartum care, what I'm offering women is that we look beforehand of what is it that they want for their postpartum, because everybody wants different things. So is it that they want me to do more body work on them? Is it that they feel like they want more input on food, like what they're going to make, or their partners, or do they want me to actually come and cook for them? Do they want support with breastfeeding? Do they want craniosacral for mom and baby? Because we know how beneficial that is for both of them after a birth. Doesn't matter how the birth turns out, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
beneficial for both. Or is it just to like, my neck's really sore here. Like, can you rub my neck and can you make me like hands food that I can just put in my mouth, that I don't have to like, that it's just easy to eat? I'm like, cool, that's what we'll do next time. So it's about preparing for that as well, of what are your needs, and then coming up with a plan of, okay, so this is your plan that we need, and if we need to add or take away, we can. So I feel like that's important, and the importance of rest, because I don't think that the majority of women understand the amount of rest that is needed once you've had a baby. Like, you
Mm.
need to be resting. You need to be lying down. And if women have got stairs in their home, or they live in an apartment, if they've had a Caesar, they're allowed to do those stairs once a day. That's it. I
Yeah.
don't allow them any more than that. That's it. You're in your bed.
Yeah.
You walk to the bathroom and you get back into bed. That is what you're doing. And you're
Mm-hmm.
looking after your child, which means breastfeeding. You're doing the input, breastfeeding. Dads are doing the output, or partner, or whoever's helping you. They are
Mm-hmm.
changing the nappies and winding baby and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks different for every partner. I'm very much, I'm sure you've got the feel of that. It's very much about everybody is unique and their experience is unique. So I'm not in like, well, if you want a physiological birth, you have to do these 5 things. And then for postpartum, you have to do these 5 things, and there you go. It's like, no, this is what's on the menu. What is it that you would like? What is it that is
Mm-hmm.
important to you in your values, in your life, in where you are?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's different. So I like to really customize the experience. And then when you look at more ceremony and ritual, like doing the belly binding, binding the belly is so important. It's not just about, oh, let me bind the belly so I can look good again. That's not what it's about. Okay. It's about,
Mm-hmm.
let's take back that center, because the second chakra is where 72,000 nerve endings are stretched when you're pregnant. That's why you feel so vulnerable. And we need to take that energy back when you've had a baby. And that's why the belly binding is so beneficial, is we are taking back that power center as a woman by doing the belly binding, by supporting the lower back. It feels like a beautiful hug when we bind our
Mm-hmm.
wombs. And so it becomes not only, I want my tissue to come together and my organs to move back into place, but it's also about, I am honoring myself. I am honoring this body that has grown and birthed a baby and is still caring for this baby. So I think that's really important, the belly binding. And then, of course, the closing of the bones, I think, is another beautiful ritual that I feel has evolved over the last 6 years of offering it.
Mm-hmm.
In that I make it very ritualistic, and again customize it to every woman, because every woman is different of what it is that she needs in that moment. And some women will want to do it within the week of birth, Women want to wait till 6 weeks. So I did closing of the bones on a woman whose son was turning 18, and she was like, "I
Love.
think it's time." So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter at what stage, um, done in the right way. And I'm all about women feeling heard and seen and held, because I feel
Hmm.
like women are not, we don't do that anymore. I've recently this year started doing women's circles, and it's not for pregnant women, it's not for postpartum women, it's for all women. So you can be pregnant,
Hmm.
you can be postpartum, you can never have had a baby. And I've got women literally from 28 to 52 that come. And it's, some women are the same, some are different every time. And we sit together for 4 hours and we do a different theme. We
Hmm.
talk, we get witnessed, everyone gets a chance to speak, we experience different things. And I think that's what we used to do when we would bleed. We would sit with women, younger and older, and we would listen to their stories and we would tell stories. So we would learn wisdom. We would also feel witnessed. We would feel like we had a voice, we had a place. Whereas now, where do women have that? With a therapist? Really? No, man. No, man. Sorry.
Hmm.
We need to be with other women.
Hmm. Absolutely. There's so much power in women coming together, sitting in circle, sharing stories, and storytelling is the most ancient way that we've been learning from each other, because that's how our heart receives knowledge, is through storytelling and through song and through circle. And I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but just the world has changed so drastically in the last like 2 generations. Globalization, medicalization, isolation, these things that, like the construction of the nuclear family, is a recent development. The development of like somebody going to work, like leaving land and going into a building and working, is a newer development and concept compared to the hundreds and thousands of years that we've been, living on land and in community and in connection with all things. And so I think that something that I find so cool in the realm of doulas is that women all over the world are really waking up, demanding this knowledge. It's like it's deep in our bones, it's deep in our wombs, this desire to connect and be seen and be heard and coming together. And I know something that you do, and like once you're a doula, I was talking about this the other day, it's like once you're a doula, you're always a doula. Like once you, because, and part of that is the knowing how to witness transformation and wanting to witness transformation. And women transform throughout our lifetimes. Like we are constantly transforming and transitioning. Can you talk a little bit about the ceremonies you offer, or how you hold space for the different transitions of women?
Again, it's unique and it's custom made. So I have spent time with young girls that are going to start into womanhood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I've done a little bit of that work. I'm not feeling as called to it, but when it arises with my clients, I do offer that. And then in the blessing way ceremonies, I've been doing those for, gosh, many years, maybe 20 years. And that is uniquely for that woman, of what is it that she needs, and we custom make it. But I feel like there's such a need for it that's why I created the pregnancy retreat day. So I do a 1-day pregnancy retreat day. I hold it in Joburg and in Cape Town. Cape Town I do once a year, but Joburg about 4 times a year. And then that's when women can come together with other women. And then we do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. We do a little bit of yoga. I feed them delicious food, so they don't come with, they don't have to bring anything, just their yoga mat, their journal, and that's about it. And a
Mm-hmm.
cushion for comfort, but that's about it. And we do all sorts of things. We make things. We do a fire ceremony. We do visualizations. We chant. We sing. I mean, we do all sorts of lovely things. And I think it's important that a blessing way ceremony is beautiful, especially if you want to do it with your close people that are your spiritual people. But to do it with other women, just again, reinforces that woman coming together. And then they get to meet other women that are also pregnant, which is really beautiful. And then of course with the postpartum and the pregnancy, doing the kahuna massage, it's very much about how your body's transforming. How do we hold that transformation in your body, in your mind, in your spirit? And then the belly binding, the closing of the bones, all of that, bringing that all together for women. Mm.
Mm. Will
Mm.
you tell our listeners how to get in touch with you, and if they want to work with you, how they can go about doing that?
So they can get me on my website, which is my name and surname.co.za, theonipapoutsis.co.za, or I'm on Instagram, which is just reversed, Papoutsis Theoni. And yeah, that's probably the best ways to get hold of me. I've also done a podcast a couple of years ago called Becoming Mother with a friend of mine, and that has got 10 beautiful birth stories. So positive birth
Love.
stories about becoming a mother. So it's not just about the birth, it's about, was it hard to get pregnant? Was it not? How was the birth? How was afterwards? So it's really all diverse women and different stories. And we've also got a pelvic floor therapist that comes on and does an episode with us as a bonus, which is lovely. Yeah, so that would be ways to find me.
Lovely. And my last question for you, because obviously I have many, but for today is if you could say a prayer or set an intention for the world when it comes to birth, or for all the mothers and all the babies, what words would you like to put out there into the world?
I mean, I feel like it's very much about trust.
Mm-hmm.
That is such a powerful word for me in my life. And it's always helped me to navigate times. Is I wish for women that they can trust their bodies, that they can trust their knowing, that they can trust their wombs, that they can trust that their bodies know how to birth and know how to feed their babies and grow their babies. And like I say, when I teach my conscious birth, like no one teaches you how to cough or sneeze or make a poo. Your body knows how to do it. Your body
Love
knows
that.
how to birth. So
Mm-hmm.
can we just trust and then trust and lean into whatever it is you believe? Great spirit, whatever it is that you believe in, is to really trust that you are held in that. And whether it's, Pachamama or Mother Earth or whatever it is, how can you just trust and lean into that? Even when you feel like you don't know where to go or don't know what to do, can you trust?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Do you have anything else that you would like to share with us today?
I just forgot
Anything that you,
to say that people who are not in South Africa,
yes.
that they could buy my book if they wanted my book called
Yes.
Conscious Birth.
Do you have one with you to hold up? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Tell us about your beautiful book.
So my book is, as I've said, it's the good stuff that of hypnobirthing that I find works. My experience as a doula, the yoga, the mindfulness, stories, and what I love is the person that did all the pictures for me, all the graphics. Is I have all sorts of people in here. So I have people of color, I have white people, I have people with head coverings, I have people with tattoos, I have people with, all sorts of people, because I feel like birth is universal and that all women are different. So that's been a big part of this book. And then also it's about the elements. So in the book, you can see you've got the moon, you've got the wind, you've got the sun, you've got the water, you've got the flowers and the earth, and of course the beautiful rose and orchids. All of those play a part in us, because we are made up of the elements. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like so it all comes together. So this book is absolutely beautiful. It took me a while to put together, but it's really practical and it's a resource. So it's something that people can dip into again and again. And it's really practical as well. So it's got lists of what do I pack in the birthing bag, and what if I want to, if I'm having a Caesar, what do I want? Or if I'm having a physiological birth, what do I want? So it covers all things.
And it's a beautiful book. I have shared it with several of my clients, and everyone is so grateful for it. How can they find this book?
So on my website, you just go to the shop
Okay,
and there
great.
it is.
And for those listening or watching, I will have that linked.
Thank you.
Mhm. Theoni, it is always such a pleasure to connect with you. Thank you so much for your heart and for the work that you're doing in this world and for continuing to show up. I feel as though you're someone who very much embodies the lifelong journey of birth work and in its
Thank you.
many evolutions. So thank you for
Thank
the
you.
gift that you are in this world.
Thank you. And yes, and thank you for having me on here and inviting me, because I feel really honored. And I feel like even though you thought you had to show up for me on the Ecuador trip, I feel that way about you. I feel like you are really amazing. All the
Thank
things
you.
that you are putting together and making people aware and sharing and bringing together all the cultures, it's phenomenal. So keep doing what you're doing,
Thank
and
you.
so lovely to spend this time with you, and I love you to bits.
Love you as well. Mwah. I'll talk to you again very soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us today with the brilliant Theoni. If today's episode moved you, we invite you to share it with your community, leave us a review, and continue the conversation with us online. You can find more about our programs, trainings, and upcoming gatherings at wombsoftheworld.com or on Instagram at wombsoftheworld. Until next time, may you walk gently, honor your body as sacred, and carry it forward the wisdom that birth belongs to all of us. Sending you all my love.